Thank you very much. First thing I want to talk about is we talk about collateral damage. When something like this happens, during that time I was 17 years old. I was in my senior year in high school. Just finished off football season. Was getting ready to gear up for basketball. Got the phone call that night, actually from my godfather, who was a good friend of my dad's. Said something happened to your dad today at work. He's at the hospital. Told me where the hospital was. He said you need to get over there. That's all he told me. So I'm going over there the whole time. I'm thinking, I hope he's all right. And I walk in the hospital and I see some of the carpenters. A few of you guys may know Louis and Leonard Wilson. I see my uncle there. Dan and Cindy are there. And I don't know if Mike was there or not. Maybe Dennis was there. But and Rick Campbell was there. He was a good friend of my dad's. And I get in there, and the first person to come greet me is Rick Campbell. And he tell, I say, how's my dad? And he told me he's dead, Tom. And that's something I'll never forget the rest of my life. I think at that time I just hit the floor. Rick was trying to hold me up. It's a bad time. I had a half. My dad had been divorced from my mother and been remarried. I had a stepmother. I had a half brother and sister. My sister was 3 months old at the time, and my brother was 3 years old. I was fortunate enough that I got to spend 17 years of my life with my dad. My brother and sister weren't that fortunate. So it's things that we do every day on the job that we take for granted. We're all forced, each and every one of us, to make decisions every day. What we got to realize is that the decisions we make can be life-altering. We take it for granted, but we got to really, live the IAF commitment. It's not just a piece of paper you sign. It has to be something that we live, something that we believe in. I take it upon myself every day. It's a responsibility not only to my family, my wife and kids, but to each one of my coworkers, no matter who they are, from what walk of life, what race, it doesn't matter. It's a responsibility that I take serious. I'm gonna make sure they go home safe at the end of the day. We're not gonna cut corners. Cost, schedule, doesn't matter. It's not worth it. And those ramifications, the collateral damage, will go on for my generation and my two sons' generation. I have 3 kids at home now. My oldest son's 12 years old. My next one's 11. I have a daughter. She'll be 2 in July. Now, probably my daughter, she may ask, may not, what was Grandpa like? But my 2 boys, they see the pictures hanging on the wall. They see my dad there with a deer or a fish, and they're into hunting and fishing and sports. And they ask, what was Grandpa like, Dad? What kind of guy was he? You think he liked to take us fishing? It's just stuff that every day is a reminder, to how serious things can be, and it only takes a second. I'm sure when this boom truck came in contact with the line, it was there for 100th of a second. Things change that quick.
This DVD was developed by the ASCC Safety and Risk Management Council to help members achieve their mission of being the safest contractors in the industry. Construction workers are exposed to risks on a daily basis. Only through teamwork can we safely achieve our goals. You are about to become a critical member of our team. Your employer's safety and health program contains rules, regulations, and safe work practices. Health and safety standards published by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, have been developed to help you and your employer operate in a safe, efficient manner. As a member of our team, you are expected to be mentally and physically fit for work each day. Learn and obey the rules. Follow safe work practices and procedures. Look out for your coworkers. Immediately report all injuries, accidents, near-miss events, unsafe practices, and conditions. Ask questions when instructions are unclear, or if you don't know how to perform a task safely. Be alert for changing conditions. Actively participate in your employer's safety program. Failure to comply with safe practices could result in OSHA citations and fines to your employer, disciplinary action, damage to materials, equipment, or the environment, injury to you or coworkers, or death. In this presentation, we will discuss common construction hazards and safe work practices, your duties and responsibilities at the job site. Alcohol and substance abuse policies. Being mentally and physically fit for the job is critical. You are prohibited from being in possession of or under the influence of mind-altering drugs or alcohol while on the job. Drug and alcohol testing in accordance with federal and state regulations may be required. If you are taking over-the-counter or prescribed medications that could impair your judgment or ability to perform a task safely, discuss it with your supervisor. Basic Personal Protective Equipment, or PPE. All companies have requirements for personal protective equipment, also known as PPE. Common requirements are American National Standards Institute, ANSI, approved safety glasses with side shields, hard hats, long pants, shirts with sleeves. Sleeveless shirts, tank tops, or loose-fitting clothing are not allowed. Dangling jewelry is not allowed. When performing certain tasks, additional PPE may be required, including ANSI-approved work boots, gym shoes, sandals, and open-toe footwear are not allowed. Work or specialty gloves, high-visibility reflective vests, goggles, face shields, hearing protection, respiratory protection, fire-retardant clothing, impervious clothing. PPE requirements should be reviewed with you as part of your new employee orientation. Appropriate training on the care, use, and limitations of your PPE should also be provided. It is your responsibility to inspect and use your PPE as intended. When in doubt about the correct PPE for a task, ask your foreman or supervisor. Pre-task planning. Before starting any task, ask and answer the following questions. How could I get hurt? Could you fall? Be struck by a falling object? Get caught in or between moving and fixed objects? Or be shocked? Where is the energy? What is the magnitude of the energy, and how can it be eliminated or controlled? What could possibly go wrong? Will I be exposed to hazardous materials? What can I do to protect myself and my coworkers? Your employer may require you to complete or participate in a Job Hazard Analysis, JHA, or a Job Safety Analysis, JSA. Participation in the analysis will alert you to possible hazards and show you how to safely complete the task at hand. OSHA maintains detailed records of workplace illness, injury, and fatalities. The same 4 accidents consistently account for 90% of construction fatalities. They are called the OSHA Focus 4 hazards. 1. Falls. 2. Struck by. 3. Electrocution. And 4. Caught in, on, or between. Primary causes of fall-related fatalities are 1. Unprotected sides and leading edges. When guardrails are not in place and it is possible to fall more than 6 feet from the elevation of your feet, workers must be protected by a safety net or wear personal protective equipment. 2. Unprotected holes in floors. Assume that under every piece of plywood there is a hole. Proper hole covers are capable of supporting the maximum intended load, are secured in place, and are clearly marked opening or hole. Do not remove. 3. Improperly constructed work and walking surfaces, which can fail and collapse. 4. Improper use of access equipment, including ladders. 5. Failure to properly use your personal fall arrest system. This system includes a full body harness, a shock-absorbing lanyard, and an anchor point. 6. Slips and trips, often due to poor housekeeping. Keep your work area clean. Primary causes of struck-by fatalities are 1. Falling and flying objects due to lack of overhead protection, or access to the area below not being barricaded off. Always wear your hard hat and wear it correctly. 2. Vehicle and equipment strikes. Never cross the path of moving equipment without first making eye contact with the operator and receiving permission to do so. Moving construction equipment always has the right of way. Primary causes of electrocution fatalities are 1. Contact with overhead power lines. Equipment, manpower, and tools must be kept at least 20 feet from energized power lines. 2. Contact with underground power lines. Check that underground utilities have been located before digging. 3. Contact with live circuits in panels. Follow lockout-tagout procedures. 4. Poorly maintained cords and tools. Inspect tools, power cords, and light sets before use to make sure they are in good condition and protected by ground fault circuit interrupters. 5. Lightning strikes. Primary causes of caught-in-between or pinch point fatalities are 1. Trench or excavation collapse. 2. Rotating equipment. 3. Unguarded moving parts. 4. Equipment rollovers. 5. Performing equipment maintenance. And 6. Working under unsupported or incorrectly supported equipment. Hand tool safety. Working on a construction site, you will most likely use hand tools on a daily basis. Proper maintenance and use of those tools can prevent injuries. Keep all tools in good condition. Use the right tool for the job. Examine each tool for damage before use. Operate tools according to the manufacturer's instructions. Always wear the proper personal protective equipment for the tool you are using. Any tool that produces flying or wind-blown debris, such as hammers and saws, requires safety glasses or goggles. Wear leather or cut-resistant work gloves to protect your hands from cuts and splintering debris. Always wear your hard hat and appropriate work clothes. Before using a hand tool, perform a thorough inspection. Check that handles are not loose, splintered, or cracked. Check cords to confirm they are not damaged or frayed. Check that the ground plug is in place. Inspect the heads of impact tools for mushrooming. Blades should be sharp with smooth edges. Cracked or chipped blades and other defective equipment should be tagged danger, do not use, and taken out of service. Your hands and eyes are tools you can't replace. Power tool safety. Improper use and maintenance of power tools can cause severe injuries or even death. Before using a power tool, take the time to 1. Inspect the tool before you plug it in, load it, or use it. 2. Make sure the power cord is not damaged and that the ground plug is in place. 3. Make sure all manufacturer-installed guards and safety switches are in place and operational. 4. Tag defective tools, danger, do not operate, and take out of service. And 5. Make sure you're wearing the appropriate PPE for the tool you are using. For example, if you're using a jackhammer, you should be wearing a hard hat, face shield, hearing protection, vibratory gloves, and safety-toed work boots. 6. Plug into a grounded receptacle. Use a low-voltage isolation transformer or use a double-insulated tool. 7. Make sure all 110-volt powered equipment is protected by a ground fault circuit interrupter. Powder-actuated tools are like a loaded gun. They are extremely dangerous and should only be used by employees who have been trained and certified to safely operate them. Fueling gasoline-powered tools should only be done after the tool has been shut down and is cooled off. Proper ventilation is necessary when using these tools in an enclosed area. Pneumatic tool attachments must be checked and securely fastened to the air hose. Plant your feet properly and hold the tool securely. Take regular breaks when operating tools that vibrate, such as jackhammers and chippers. Circular saw safety. A circular saw makes quick work of cutting lumber. However, it can cause severe injuries. Always inspect the saw to confirm that the blade, guards, and power cord are not damaged. Position your body behind the saw and on either side of the blade. Hold the saw with both hands when starting and run the saw at full speed before you begin to cut. Never put your hands in the cutting area or hold pieces of wood for cutting in your hands. Never wedge or tie up the blade guard. Don't use your feet or legs to support the wood you're cutting. Never run the saw while holding it at your side or walking with it. Never mount a circular saw to a table and use as a table saw. Remove all nails prior to cutting. When you need to clean or perform maintenance on the saw, first disconnect the plug from the power source. Fire prevention. Fire prevention means pre-planning so that a fire never starts. 4 things must be present at the same time to produce fire. 1. Oxygen. 2. Heat. 3. Fuel or combustible material. And 4. A chemical reaction. Take any of these 4 things away, and you will not have a fire. Follow these general fire safety guidelines. 1. Smoke only in designated areas. Completely extinguish smoking materials and dispose of them properly. 2. When transferring flammable liquids from one container to another, the 2 containers should be bonded and labeled. 3. When refueling gasoline-powered equipment, the equipment should be turned off, allowed to cool, and moved to a well-ventilated area. 4. Don't weld, burn, cut, or use temporary heat near flammable or combustible materials. Combustible materials should be at least 20 feet away from the hot work or covered to prevent ignition. 5. When welding, cutting, or performing other hot work, a properly trained fire watch with the appropriate fire extinguisher should be assigned to monitor the area. Not all fuels are the same. If you use the wrong type of fire extinguisher, you can make matters worse. It is important to understand the different classifications of fuel. Class A fuel includes wood, paper, cloth, trash, and some plastics. Class B fuel includes flammable liquids, gasoline, oils, and grease acetone. Class C fuel includes energized electrical equipment that is plugged in. Class D fuel includes combustible metals such as magnesium and sodium. Most fire extinguishers have a pictograph label telling you which fuel the extinguisher is designed to fight. ABC type or multi-purpose extinguishers are red and range in size from 5 pounds to 20 pounds. A special extinguisher is required for Class D fires. To operate a fire extinguisher, remember the word PASS. P-A-S-S. P. Pull the pin. A. Aim at the base of the fire. S. Squeeze the trigger and S. Sweep from side to side until the fire is completely out. Start using the extinguisher from a safe distance away, then move forward until the fire is out. Keep an eye on the area in case it reignites. Be familiar with the Site Emergency Action Plan, which should include escape routes and procedures, a head counting procedure, and becoming familiar with the different alarms. Excavation and trench safety. Always be aware of your surroundings on a construction site, especially when working in a trench or excavation. Trenching and excavation activities must always be done under the direction of a trained, competent person. The competent person will implement controls which include the protection of surface structures, utility markout, soil classification, protective systems to prevent cave-in, and protection from hazardous atmospheres within the excavation. The competent person will decide how to safely enter and exit the excavation. Be aware of spalling, small chunks of dirt falling from the trench wall, water seepage, surface failure, or tension cracks, heavy equipment vibration, or extreme freezing and thawing. These could be early signs of a cave-in. Most trench failures occur after continued periods of wet weather and during late winter and early spring. An emergency rescue plan must be in place before you enter a trench or excavation, because in the event of a cave-in, every second counts. Never enter a trench or excavation unless you have been trained and authorized to do so, and it has been inspected by a competent person. If there is a doubt, stay out. Confined spaces. Box culverts, manholes, sewers, caissons, tanks, ductwork, and some deep excavations are considered to be confined spaces that should not be entered without careful planning and approval. Confined spaces may contain hazardous atmospheres, engulfment, and other physical hazards which could be life-threatening. Never enter a confined space until the hazards have been identified and eliminated or controlled, and you have been trained and authorized to do so. Keep in mind that if any part of your body breaks the plane of the opening, you have entered the space and could be at risk. Remember, if you don't know, don't go. Ladders and scaffolds. Ladders may be used to safely work off of if the following procedures are followed. 1. Inspect all ladders before each use to ensure that they are in safe working condition. If a ladder is not safe, remove it from service and mark it as unsafe. 2. All ladders must be set on a stable base. 3. Each type of ladder must be used in the manner for which it was designed. Do not use an A-frame ladder by leaning it against a wall. Instead, use an extension ladder. 4. Your hands may only be used for climbing. 3 points of contact must be maintained at all times. You are not allowed to carry anything when climbing a ladder. Tools and materials are to be handed up by a coworker or hoisted up separately with a rope and pulley. 5. Regardless of the type of ladder used, if your work position requires that your belt buckle be outside the side rails of the ladder, you are in an unsafe position. Either move the ladder or use another type of equipment to gain access. 7. Keep both feet on the rungs. Do not reach out too far or place one foot on an adjacent structure in a spread eagle stance. Change the position of the ladder as often as necessary. Supported scaffolds are temporary elevated work platforms supported from below. OSHA has mandatory training and certification requirements for both the erectors and users of scaffolding. Only a certified scaffold erector can erect, modify, or dismantle scaffolds. You must be trained as a scaffold user to use or work on a scaffold. All scaffolds must be inspected on a daily basis by a competent person and cleared for use. Scaffolds which are being erected, modified, or dismantled will be red tagged. Do not modify or move a scaffold to meet your needs unless you are a certified scaffold erector. Mechanical aerial lifts. There are 2 types of mechanical lifts used to provide safe working access at heights: scissor lifts or elevating work platforms, and aerial or boom lifts. These mechanical aerial lifts are useful tools but can cause serious harm, even death, if used incorrectly. Workers have been thrown out of boom lifts because they weren't wearing the mandatory fall protection. Electrocutions have occurred when the lift or the materials being handled contacted overhead electric lines. Operators have been crushed between a lift and overhead obstructions. Personnel have been killed when a lift turned over. OSHA has mandatory training requirements for scissor and boom lift operators. Do not operate a scissor or boom lift unless you have had